Yellowstone, a land of steam and stone, beauty and danger, where nature reigns, and the wild isn't just a backdrop, it's a presence. But beneath those picture-perfect views, beyond the bubbling geysers and towering pines, lies something else. Something unspoken. Something that doesn't show up on park brochures. A ranger's silence broken. A camper's face-to-face encounter with something not quite human. And the fog. Always the fog. Rolling in to take what it wants. You think you know Yellowstone, but these stories, well, they might just change your mind. Welcome to Weird Encounters, a place where the ordinary fades into shadow and the unexplainable comes alive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and become part of our ever-growing community of the curious. Now prepare yourself, because what you are about to hear is not for the faint of heart. Yellowstone National Park, nearly 3,500 square miles of wilderness stretching across 3 states. Geysers, wolves, and wonders, but also a deep silence, the kind that holds its breath. Every so often, someone enters that silence and doesn't come back. This is one former ranger's account, a story of missing hikers, unexplainable sightings, and a shadow that stretches longer than any trail. Well, you all asked about those disappearances. There's a lot I kept to myself over the years, and I figure I've got more behind me than ahead, so why not? Back in 2014, I was stationed in the southeast part of the park, somewhere between Beckler River and the Pitchstone Plateau. We called it the Quiet Corner. Not a lot of foot traffic, no tour buses, just thick timber, thermal vents, waterfalls, and miles of barely touched trail. You can walk for days and not hear another voice. Some folks love that. Others don't come back. There were 3 disappearances during the 5 years I worked that corner. They don't make the news, not really. 1 or 2 might get a blurb in the Jackson Hole Daily, but the park's official stance is usually no foul play suspected, presumed lost, search concluded. Thing is, we never find bodies, no gear, not even torn fabric or boot prints past a certain point. Just stopped. The one that still gets to me was in late summer 2016, August. Guy named Marcus, 38, hiker from Oregon. He signed in at the Beckler Ranger Station headed toward Dononda Falls. Common route. He had all his permits, a pack, even filed a return time with his cousin who dropped him off. We found his camp. Stove was out, pack still there. His boots were beside his sleeping bag, like he went to bed and never woke up. But that's not the weird part. About a mile downriver, we found his socks, just sitting on a rock like someone peeled them off and set them there. Then nothing. No more tracks. Just bare rock and silence. We did a 5-day search. Helicopters, dogs, thermal imaging. Not a damn thing. You want to know the part that made my skin crawl? A week after the search ended, a family from Idaho doing some fly fishing reported hearing what they thought was a person shouting in the woods near Union Falls. The dad said it sounded like someone yelling, "Help," but wrong. That's the word he used, wrong. Like it was distorted. Like whoever was yelling wasn't human, or didn't know how to sound like one. You spend enough time out there and you hear the stories. The Crow have legends about a shadow taker spirit in the woods near the thermal rivers. Walks on 2 legs, smells like sulfur. Doesn't speak, just mimics. Some say it was born from the boiling mud pits. A punishment. A thing that can wear your face. I used to laugh at that stuff. Until I met Eliza. She lived out past Warm River, ran a bait shop and made mean elk chili. Said her grandfather told her to never follow a sound if she was alone in the woods, especially if it sounded like family, because it might look like someone you know, but it's not them. She said she saw something once by Cascade Corner, tall, gray, naked looking, but slick, like a seal standing upright. No face, just a mouth too wide and eyes too small. I asked if she was serious, and she told me she'd never been back. There's more. Little things. One time a junior ranger got turned around for hours near Snake River Hot Springs. Swears he only walked for 15 minutes. We found him babbling, nose bleeding, staring into the trees like they were watching him. Said he felt like he was being pulled. That's the word he used. Pulled. And then there's the cave. That's not on the maps. Locals call it Devil's Step. Up a narrow gulch north of Boundary Creek. You have to cross an old rock slide to even see the opening. It's tall and thin and warm inside, like the earth is breathing on you. I went in once with a geology guy doing thermal readings. About 30 feet in, the walls were covered in soot, but no sign of fire. And the deeper you went, the quieter it got, like the air was too thick for sound. He said it made his instruments act up. Temp readings spiked, compass spun, and the batteries on his meter died. He didn't go back. Neither did I. You want to talk about theories? Sure. Let's start with the simple ones. Falls, broken legs, animal attacks. They happen. No question. People wander off trail and panic, get hurt, don't get found. Nature's not kind to mistakes. But these disappearances, they don't track. You don't go barefoot into thermal country. You don't leave your gear. You don't vanish without leaving a trail. Some of us whispered other things. Fault lines, electromagnetic fields, missing time. I knew a guy from Lamar Valley who swore he lost 3 hours while out tagging elk. Thought his watch broke. But then his GPS showed a straight line jump, 1.2 miles, no terrain explanation. Like he blinked and moved. Others say it's the caves. There's supposedly a network of lava tubes under Yellowstone. Uncharted. Some of them collapsed, some still open. What if someone fell in? Or what if something lives under? I don't know. I'm not saying it's Bigfoot or Dogman or aliens. I'm just saying the woods don't always play fair, and the government doesn't always share what they know. There were rumors, nothing official, about unmarked helicopters near the Pitchstone Plateau around 2018. I never saw them, but other rangers did. Black, no insignias. Park officials claimed it was wildlife monitoring, except none of the wildlife teams had records of aerial surveys that week. And then, of course, there's the one report that got sealed. We were told it was a mistake, bad data entry. But the log showed it clearly. It was entered at 3:13 a.m. and said, "Entity sighted near Scout Pool. It's not an animal. Its eyes shined, partially humanoid, and vocal mimicry." Next day, it was gone. Redacted. Wiped. So yeah, I think something's out there. Not just nature. Something older, smarter. Maybe it's always been here. Maybe we're just walking into its home without realizing. I still dream about the plateau. About standing by the boiling river and hearing footsteps behind me. Slow, wet, not crunching twigs, sliding. I don't go back anymore. Haven't since I left the service. And I don't camp. Not without other people. Not without fire. Whatever took those people, it's still out there. And it's waiting. A sanctuary for wildlife, a spectacle for tourists, and, if you listen closely to the locals, a keeper of secrets. This isn't a story you'll find in any ranger briefing or safety pamphlet. It's not printed on the back of trail maps or mentioned in the visitor center. But it happened. And the man telling it? He used to wear the badge. I worked Yellowstone from 2009 to 2021, stationed mostly out of Mammoth, but we rotated a lot depending on fire season and trail needs. In 2016, I was assigned to backcountry patrol around Blacktail Plateau Drive, east of the Petrified Tree area. Not the most traveled part of the park, especially after Labor Day, which is when this all went down. Early fall. Less tourists. Long shadows. Quiet. We got the call about a missing couple on October 5th. They were from Reno. Married. driving a blue Subaru Outback with a rental tag, which they'd left at the pullout near the Lava Creek picnic area. They signed in at the trail register for a 2-night loop toward Lost Creek and back. They never signed out. We hiked in first light the next morning, found their camp. Fire was out cold, tent zipped. Their gear was mostly there, 1 backpack gone, 2 sets of boots, but food untouched. No bear signs, no drag marks, no scuffle. It was like they stepped out to pee and never came back. Except it had been nearly 48 hours by that point. We swept grid style for 3 days. Nothing. On the 4th day, a guy named Harris, an older ranger, worked in the park longer than I'd been alive. He pulled me aside and told me, real low, not to go deeper east past a certain ridgeline unless I had to. I asked him why, and he just said, "Sometimes things don't want to be seen." Thought it was just old-timer nerves, but there's this thing the senior rangers talk about, off the books. They call it the fog. Not regular fog. This stuff only shows up certain times of year, usually early mornings in October or March, around the plateau. You can see it curling through the lodgepole pines, low and thick, but if you try walking into it, GPS stops working and radios go static. Sometimes you get turned around. Sometimes you lose hours. We found their footprints 3 days later, a full 1.5 miles from where they were supposed to be, up near an old thermal vent that's not even labeled on most visitor maps, just a spot locals call Devil's Tooth. Their prints led straight into the vent area and stopped. No return trail. No prints after that, like they vanished mid-step. Here's where it gets strange. That same night, I was camping alone near the fire watch hut east of Elk Plaza, a little ways off from the main search area. About 2 a.m., something woke me up. I thought it was an elk bellowing at first, but the sound was off. Lower, wetter. Not guttural like a grizzly or sharp like a coyote. It was this croaking, echoing growl. It didn't stop. I couldn't see anything, just the fog rolling in from the trees, thick and heavy, almost glowing silver in the moonlight. And then I saw it. At the tree line maybe 100 yards out, something tall moved. Not a bear, not a moose. It was standing upright, bony. It had a long neck or head, and the way it moved was jerky, like it wasn't used to walking. It shimmered, almost like it wasn't fully there, like you were seeing it through heat waves. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Just waited until it turned away and slipped back into the trees. I kept quiet the rest of that week, didn't log the sighting, didn't mention the missing couple again, but they weren't the only ones. Back in 1984, another disappearance happened near the same ridge. A solo hiker named Clint R. They found his journal weeks later, pages soaked but still readable. His last entry read, "There's something behind the fog. Not a bear. Not a man. I followed the wrong thing." Locals talk about something called the Watcher of the Plateau, an old crow tail, something that lives in the steam and fog, walking with no sound, luring the curious. One old rancher I talked to outside Gardner said the land east of the plateau was not for people, said the ground was hollow in places, said his great-grandfather used to hear voices coming out of it on cold nights. I heard those voices once, maybe not voices exactly, but whispering. It wasn't wind. It circled my tent. And when I finally stepped outside, the air felt electric, and all the forest was dead silent. No crickets, no owls, just silence. There's been unofficial chatter in ranger meetings, folks going quiet when certain sites come up. The fog zones, they call them. Places where compass needles spin and batteries drain. One guy, Todd from Bozeman, he said he saw something crawling up a pine tree without touching the trunk, just clinging to the air, like a spider without strings. Another guy talked about seeing eyes in the steam vents, too high up to be an animal, bright yellow, unblinking. I transferred out in 2021. Couldn't shake the feeling. Couldn't sleep out there anymore. Every fall I still dream of that fog rolling in and something inside it that's watching. Not hunting, not feeding, just watching. And sometimes it walks. People think Yellowstone's dangerous because of the bears or the geysers or the boiling mud. But it's not. It's what we don't have names for that scares me the most. They never found that couple. Not a scrap. No bones, no trace. Official record says unknown causes. But the fog came in that week, and it never really left. Vast, raw, beautiful, and unforgiving. Underneath its geysers and forests, beyond the well-worn tourist paths, something ancient may still be watching. This is the story of one man's encounter with a thing he never meant to see, and how that experience has haunted him ever since. I've told a couple people before, and they either thought I was messing with them or that I was having some kind of breakdown. But I wasn't drunk. I wasn't high. I was just camping, alone, like I've done dozens of times before. This happened 3 years ago, around early October. I was on a solo hike through the southern part of Yellowstone, closer to the thoroughfare region. Some say it's the most remote part of the lower 48. They're not wrong. There's nothing out there but rivers, bear prints, and wind in the trees. I set up camp near the edge of Bridger Lake. Quiet. Not a soul around. I made dinner, sat by the fire, and turned in early. That night, I heard this sound. Deep, far off, like a groan, but lower. Vibrating. At first, I thought it was just geothermal activity. You hear all sorts of strange sounds out there from the vents and ground shifts, but it kept going, and it got closer. I stepped out of the tent just past midnight, full moon overhead, clear as crystal, and there it was, fog, thick, creeping in across the lake, but it wasn't cold. That's the thing. Fog out here usually means the temperature dropped, but this? It was warm, like steam. I turned toward the trees behind my tent, and that's when I saw the movement. Not animal, not human. Something in between. It was crouched near the edge of the tree line, long limbs, pale skin, or something close to skin. It moved weird, like it was disjointed. I thought it was a bear at first until it stood up. 8 feet tall, no fur. And those eyes. They didn't glow like in the movies. They were dull, sunken in. But somehow I still knew it was staring right at me. I didn't run. I couldn't. I froze. It took one step forward, just one, and the ground hissed beneath it like its body heat was boiling the moisture in the soil. Then the screaming started, not from me, from the trees, from the woods. Voices, dozens of them, screaming, whispering, calling names I recognized. Old friends. My mother's voice, my own voice, saying things I never said, repeating phrases, begging for help. I stepped back toward the tent, slowly, still staring at this thing, and I swear, its face started to change. Not morph like in a movie, but shift, like it didn't have one, like it borrowed faces, wore them for moments. I saw my brother's face, then my own, then something I didn't recognize. Wide black eyes, slits where a nose should be. And then it was gone. Just stepped backward, into the trees, quiet as smoke. I didn't sleep. I didn't pack up. I just stood by the fire until dawn. When I finally got the courage to check the area, I found something about 20 yards into the trees. A circle burned into the ground. Not fire, though. The grass wasn't charred. It was gone. Dissolved. Just dry, cracked earth in a perfect ring. I got out of there. Hiked 13 miles back to the nearest ranger outpost and didn't look back. I filed no report. Just told them I heard something strange and left it at that. Later, at a small general store near Cody, I mentioned it, just a vague version, to the old guy behind the counter. He looked at me, dead serious, and said, "You were in the wrong place in the wrong season." Then he said something about the thin one and how it comes out when the ground breathes deeper. I asked around after that, quietly. I found some folks who'd heard similar things, hunters, backpackers, even one guy who used to do wildfire survey out there. Most of them wouldn't say much. One guy told me about a girl that went missing back in the 90s, same region. Her brother found her journal a year later. It ended with this sentence: "I thought it was Dad calling me. It wasn't." You know, people talk about Yellowstone's dangers like they're all natural. Bears, wolves, falls, thermal pits. But the ones who live near the park, who really know the land, they'll tell you there's other things. Things that don't leave tracks. Things that watch. I've spent a lot of time trying to come up with a rational explanation. Hallucination, sleep deprivation, shadows playing tricks. But it wasn't that. Something lives out there. Maybe beneath the geysers, maybe in the caves, maybe it's always been here. It doesn't kill, at least not in front of you. But it takes, it calls, and it waits until you're far from help, until the fog rolls in, until you start to believe that voice in the trees really does sound like someone you know. And so, another strange encounter fades away. A trick of the mind, or something far more unsettling. That's for you to decide. Thank you so much for watching my stories. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support is what keeps this channel going.